welcome you all for our Newsmaker Luncheon featuring Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, Ayad Akhatar.
Disgraced is basically the story of Amir Kapoor, who is a corporate attorney of Pakistani Muslim origin, who has been hiding his Muslim origins from his bosses, Jewish bosses at work. He's changed his last name to Kapoor from Abdullah. For anybody in the know in any way, they would know that Kapoor is a Hindu or a Sikh name, and his Jewish partners at work, or his Jewish bosses, are very culturally savvy, so they make that assumption. They think he's Hindu. And over the course of the play, this fiction comes out in various forms, and at the heart of the play is a dinner party scene where he has way too much to drink because he's had an awful day at work, where it really looks like he's being pushed out because they've figured out that he's Muslim, at least origin is that he's of Muslim origin, and he has way too much to drink, and he says a lot of things that he probably he definitely shouldn't say, and basically his life unravels. So that's the. And he's married. The other nexus here is that he's married to a white woman who is an artist, and she has a real passion for Islamic art, which is sort of the bane of his existence, is that he ended up with this. He hates Islam. He's defined himself in opposition to everything that anybody could ever say about Islam, and then he ends up with this very attractive white woman who is obsessed with Islam. So,
how much of you is in Amir, and how do you feel in that spot?
Jim, it's a good thing I like you. Look, I think the play. I think there are very thoughtful readings of the play that could very much see Amir's dilemma as the dilemma of the writer writing the play. Someone who's nuanced and potentially very conflictual relationship with his own familial history, his own baggage. I think any writer that we would want to mention, any of the writers on this wall, are probably writers who were in conflict with their past and their heritage, their families. I think that the thing that I've been saying of late, or found myself saying of late in interviews, is that the play seemed to know something about what was happening to America before I did. That in a sense, what the play is really about is exactly what you're talking about. It's the sort of politicization or polemicization of everyday life. And that those characters, when I sat down in that Starbucks on Highway 100 to start writing, whose rhetoric is so degraded over the course of this play, I could never have imagined that kind of public discourse, that kind of discourse would exist in public. Not at that time. You would go to a theater and see people talk like that to each other, and then maybe that tells you something about what's really going on in people's hearts. It's ostensibly about Muslim American experience. It's really, identity in the play is a kind of a canary in the coal mine phenomenon for the transformation of the American experience. So I didn't know that at the time, obviously, but I think, as a writer, sometimes you're plugged into things that you don't know consciously, but that are running through you because you're working with what feels real, truly. What feels real to you and has enough of a learning edge inside it that it feels alive. And usually that's the stuff that ends up happening. I had a high school teacher by the name of Diane Durfler, who is still with us. She lives in Kettle Moraine. She changed a lot of kids' lives. She changed my life. I was 15 when I had her. There was actually last night at the event, there was another student, former student of Miss Durfler at the show last night, who then emailed me on Facebook, or sent me a message on Facebook and said, I was also a student of Diane Durfler. She made me become a teacher. It was so moving to hear you speak about the fact that she changed your life, she changed my life, and I'm now an English teacher. So, she just made me want to become a writer. She was this extraordinary person. She is this extraordinary person. She would walk into the room, and she had this regal bearing that was not at all a result of affectation. I know now what it was. At the time I didn't, but kids were not insubordinate in her class because she told them not to be. They just weren't. And people just did their homework. Not because she said, do your homework or if you don't do it, then you're going to get some bad thing. They just did it because she said, do it. it was the resonance she had was I recognize now that it was the resonance of somebody who was committed to an authentic life. And she was so deeply committed to it that everything she did seemed to have a kind of, I don't know, it was an ineffable or intangible aura that was transformative. And as I said, she changed many, many people's lives. She made me want to become a writer. She was the person who, I remember first day of class, she assigned this story, this Dürrenmatt story, and it was the first lit class I'd ever taken. And my parents, they were both doctors. I was going to be a doctor. There was no question about it. If I wasn't a doctor, then I would never be able to go to these vacations to Bermuda like we went. And, don't you want to sit by a pool and then you got to be a doctor. Okay. I mean, I like Bermuda. First day of class, she assigns this story, this Dürrenmatt short story. So I go home that night, I read this story. It's like a guy who wakes up on a train and he doesn't know how he got there or where it's going, and so he's perplexed and he moves from car to car asking people, trying to figure out what's going on, and some people don't even know they're on a train. They're knitting and they're like, what train is? Other people, they know they're on a train but they don't know where it's going, and nobody seems to be particularly concerned about it. And then he finally gets to the conductor, and the conductor says, I don't know, but you should ask the guy the head of the train who's in the engine. So the narrator gets to the engine, and he sees this maniac furiously shoveling coal into this furnace, and he's like a demonic expression on his face. And the narrator says, "Excuse me, sir, where is this train going?" And the guy just points up at the window. And the narrator looks out the window and he sees this tunnel, this black abyss, and has this moment of terror, and the story ends. And the story was called The Tunnel, right? So I read this story, I'm like, what the hell is this? What is this story? It's so weird. So I come to class the next day, and in walks Miss Dörfler with keys jangling in her pocket, her coat pocket, and she twists and turns up at the board, and she says, "So what was the meaning of the story that you read last night, class?" What was the meaning of a story? What is that? This story has a meaning? Come on, what are you talking about? Nobody knew what the hell to say, and of course, most were intimidated to open their mouths if they didn't know whether they, So finally, after a lot of silence, she starts speaking. She says, "The train is life. Every now and then, one of us wakes up to the question of what it is and where it's going. He or she who would seek to know the truth tries to inquire from those around, only to recognize that most have no awareness that there is even a question. Those who have an awareness of the question have no answer. He or she who would wish to know the truth must confront the reality that life is a great unknown, and that when you face that truth, the soul's innate response to that is terror." Something happened to me. It is in many ways the pivotal moment of my life. It was as if some dimension of existence opened up, a metaphorical dimension, something about the capacity to penetrate into another register of thought and being, consciousness. It felt so self-evident in that moment that the greatest thing that I could do with my life for the entirety of my life was to commit to whatever it was that she had just said and how that had happened in a story and a thing, and then this. This feeling was a feeling worth devoting my life to. It was self-evident. It wasn't even a choice. It was just, from that point forward, there has never been a question. There's never been a doubt. She then took me under her wing and made me read everything on her shelf. I had her 2 semesters, every 2 hours every semester until the end of high school. And, I read so much stuff that she made me read, and it was amazing. And she was amazing. She is amazing. I've reached out to Miss Dörfler so many times. She lives on 60 acres of land in Kettle Moraine, or She has a farm-sized garden. She wakes up every morning at 4 a.m. to tend to 10 Great Danes. You know, a house full of books. By the time I met her, she'd been through 5 husbands. I mean, this is not a usual person. This is a very unusual human being. So it's not. It doesn't surprise me that she doesn't necessarily want to still be involved with students. And you know, what happened, and I hope she's proud. You know, I hope I'm doing her. I hope I do her an honor. But yeah, we're all on our own, apparently.